Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel Learn English with me Fizz. My name is Faison and I'm 22 years old. I'm so happy you're here today. If you want to improve your English while listening to powerful and inspiring stories, then you're in the right place. Today's story is called Train Your Mind Before It's Too Late. This is a story about discipline, self-belief, and the power of changing your mindset before life leaves you behind. So find a comfortable place, relax, and let's begin. For as long as he could remember, Ethan believed that success belonged to other people. Every morning he woke up with big dreams, but every night he went to bed with the same excuses. He wanted a better life, a successful career, good health, and happiness, yet he spent hours scrolling through his phone, delaying important work and telling himself, I'll start tomorrow. Tomorrow became next week became next month, and before he realized it, years had quietly slipped away. One quiet afternoon, while sitting alone in a peaceful park, Ethan noticed an elderly man feeding birds with a gentle smile. Curious, he wondered how someone with so little could look so happy. As Ethan stood up to leave, the old man looked into his eyes and softly said, Young man, your future is being built by the thoughts you choose today. Ethan stopped walking. Those simple words touched something deep inside him. At that moment, he realized that perhaps his biggest enemy was not failure, bad luck, or other people. Perhaps it was the way he had trained his own mind. Without knowing it, Ethan had just taken the first step toward a journey that would change his life forever. That evening, Ethan could not stop thinking about the old man's words. They echoed in his mind again and again as he walked home through the quiet streets. When he entered his small apartment, he looked around and saw unfinished books covered with dust, a desk filled with old notes, and a calendar with goals he had written months ago but never achieved. For the first time, he did not blame his family, his friends, or his circumstances. Instead, he looked into the mirror and asked himself, Have I been standing in my own way? The question was painful because he already knew the answer. He realized that every excuse he had ever made had slowly become a habit, and every habit had quietly shaped his life. That night, instead of spending hours on his phone, he took out a notebook and wrote one simple sentence across the first page. If I don't train my mind today, my future will be decided by my excuses. He read the sentence over and over until it felt real. Before going to sleep, Ethan made a promise to himself that no matter how difficult tomorrow would be, he would take one small step toward becoming the person he had always dreamed of being. He didn't know if he would succeed, but for the first time in many years, he was ready to try. The next morning, Ethan woke up before the sun had fully risen. His first instinct was to reach for his phone, but then he remembered the promise he had made to himself. He took a deep breath, put the phone aside, and opened the notebook instead. The words he had written the night before reminded him that every great change begins with one small decision. He went outside and started walking through the quiet streets. The cool morning air felt different, almost as if it was welcoming a new version of him. During his walk, he realized that success was not about making one big move. It was about making the right choice every single day, even when no one was watching. As the days passed, Ethan began waking up early, reading a few pages of a book, exercising for a short time, and writing down his thoughts before starting work. None of these habits were exciting at first, and some days he wanted to quit, but he kept reminding himself that discipline is strongest when motivation disappears. Slowly, his confidence began to grow. He was no longer waiting for the perfect moment because he finally understood that the perfect moment had always been the one he was living in right now. A few weeks later, Ethan noticed something surprising. His life had not become easier, but he had become stronger. The problems were still there, the long working hours had not changed, and unexpected difficulties continued to appear, yet his mind reacted differently. Instead of saying, Why is this happening to me? He started asking, What can this teach me? That one question changed everything. One afternoon, he met the old man in the park again. With a warm smile, the old man asked, How is your training going? Ethan proudly shared the small habits he had built and the progress he had made. The old man listened carefully before saying, "Remember, training your mind is like planting a tree. You will not see the full result in a single day, but if you water it with discipline every morning and protect it from the weeds of doubt, one day it will become so strong that no storm can break it." Ethan silently looked at the tall trees around him and finally understood the meaning of those words. Great lives are never built overnight. They are built one thought, one choice, and one disciplined day at a time. From that moment on, he stopped chasing quick success and started building a strong mind that could carry him through every challenge life would bring. Months began to pass, and the small changes Ethan had made slowly transformed into a new way of living. He no longer waited for motivation to appear before taking action because he had learned that motivation comes and goes, but discipline stays. There were still mornings when he felt tired, rainy days when he wanted to remain in bed, and moments when failure whispered that nothing would ever change. But instead of listening to those negative thoughts, he remembered the old man's words and chose to move forward anyway. One evening, after a long day, Ethan opened his notebook and looked at the first sentence he had ever written. "If I don't train my mind today, my future will be decided by my excuses." He smiled because those words no longer felt like a dream, they had become his reality. He realized that success was not a destination waiting at the end of the road. It was hidden inside every good decision, every difficult choice, and every moment he refused to give up. As he closed the notebook and looked out of the window at the stars, he understood something that many people spend their whole lives searching for. The strongest person is not the one who never falls, but the one who trains the mind to stand up every single time life knocks them down. As Ethan continued his journey, people around him began to notice the change. His friends asked why he had become so focused, and some even laughed at his new routine. They invited him to waste time as they used to, saying, "One day won't make a difference." For a moment, Ethan felt tempted because it was easier to follow the crowd than to stay committed to his goals. Then he remembered another lesson the old man had shared: "Your future is created by what you repeat, not by what you do once." Those words gave him the strength to say no. Instead of spending hours doing nothing, he invested his time in reading, learning new skills, exercising, and reflecting on his day. Slowly, the gap between Ethan and his old life became wider. He realized that every decision was like casting a vote for the person he wanted to become. The more good choices he made, the stronger his character became. One quiet evening, while watching the sunset, Ethan understood that the greatest reward of training his mind was not success, money, or praise from others. The greatest reward was waking up every morning with peace in his heart, confidence in his abilities, and the courage to keep moving forward. No matter what challenges waited for him, 1 year later, Ethan's life looked completely different, but the greatest change was still invisible to everyone except him. He had not become successful because of luck or talent. He had become successful because he had learned to control the only thing that truly belonged to him, his mind. There were still failures, unexpected problems, and moments of disappointment, but they no longer had the power to break his spirit. Every challenge became another opportunity to grow stronger. One afternoon, Ethan returned to the same park where his journey had begun, hoping to thank the old man who had changed his life with a few simple words. He searched every bench, every path, and every corner, but the old man was nowhere to be found. Instead, he noticed a young boy sitting alone with his head down, looking hopeless and defeated. Ethan quietly walked over, sat beside him, and after a moment of silence, gently said, "Your future is being built by the thoughts you choose today." The boy looked up with surprise, just as Ethan had done a year before. In that moment, Ethan smiled because he finally understood the old man's greatest lesson. Real success is not measured by what you achieve for yourself. It is measured by the hope, wisdom, and courage you pass on to someone else. As the sun slowly disappeared behind the trees, Ethan realized that training his mind had not only changed his own life, it had given him the power to help others change theirs as well from that day on. Ethan made it his mission to encourage anyone who had lost hope. He never claimed to have all the answers because he knew that every person fought a different battle. Instead, he shared his own story honestly, explaining how a single change in his mindset had transformed his entire life. Some people listened with interest while others ignored his words, just as he had once ignored good advice. But Ethan had learned that real change cannot be forced. It begins only when a person is ready to take responsibility for their own future. Years passed, and the habits that once felt difficult became as natural as breathing. Every morning, he still woke up early, read a few pages of a good book, exercised, and spent a few quiet moments in gratitude. He understood that success was not something you reached once and kept forever. It was something you protected every single day through discipline, patience, and humility. Looking back, Ethan realized that the greatest victory of his life was never the awards he received or the goals he achieved. His greatest victory was defeating the voice inside his mind that once whispered, "You can always start tomorrow." Now that voice had been replaced by a stronger one that calmly reminded him every morning, "The best time to become a better person is today." And with that simple belief guiding his heart, Ethan continued walking forward, inspiring others simply by the way he chose to live. Many years later, Ethan stood on a quiet hill as the sun slowly rose over the horizon. The peaceful morning reminded him of the day his journey had begun with a single sentence from a stranger in the park. He smiled, knowing that his life had not been changed by luck, wealth, or perfect opportunities. It had been changed by thousands of small choices made every single day. Looking back, he realized that every early morning, every difficult decision, every failure, and every moment of self-discipline had quietly built the person he had become. He understood that life will never be free from pain, disappointment, or uncertainty, but a trained mind can face every storm with courage and hope. Before leaving the hill, Ethan opened the same old notebook he had carried for years. The first page still read, "If I don't train my mind today, my future will be decided by my excuses." He gently turned to the last empty page and wrote one final message. "The greatest investment you will ever make is in your own mind. Protect it, strengthen it, and never stop learning, because your thoughts create your habits create your character. And your character creates your destiny." As he closed the notebook with a grateful smile, he knew that the most powerful lesson of his life was simple yet unforgettable. Train your mind before it's too late, because every day you delay is a day you can never get back. But every day you begin is a step toward the life you were always meant to live. Ethan's story continued to inspire many people because he showed them that transformation does not happen in one magical moment. It happens quietly through the choices we make when nobody is watching. Whenever someone asked him about the secret behind his success, Ethan never talked about talent, luck, or special opportunities. He simply said, "I learned to control my thoughts before my thoughts controlled me." He explained that the human mind is like a garden. If you plant positive thoughts, discipline, and courage, your life will slowly grow in a beautiful direction. But if you allow fear, laziness, and negativity to take control, they will create problems that become harder to remove with time. Ethan also learned an important lesson: becoming better does not mean becoming perfect. Everyone has weak moments, everyone makes mistakes, and everyone faces difficult days. The difference is that a strong mind does not stay on the ground after falling. It learns, improves, and stands again. As the years passed, Ethan continued improving himself and helping others understand the power they had inside their own minds. He knew that many people were waiting for the right moment to change, but he wanted them to understand that the right moment was not somewhere in the future. It was now. Because life does not change when circumstances become perfect. life changes when you become strong enough to create a better future. One day, Ethan faced the biggest challenge of his life. After years of hard work, he lost an important opportunity that he had worked for many months to achieve. The disappointment was painful, and for the first time in a long while, the old negative thoughts started coming back. A voice inside his mind whispered, "Maybe you are not good enough. Maybe all your effort was a waste." Ethan sat quietly that night, feeling the weight of failure on his shoulders, but then he remembered the person he used to be and the journey he had completed. He realized that the old Ethan would have given up, blamed others, and returned to his comfortable habits. But the new Ethan understood that failure was not the end of the road. It was a lesson placed there to make him stronger. He opened his notebook once again and wrote, "A strong mind does not avoid difficult moments. A strong mind learns how to overcome them." The next morning, Ethan woke up with a peaceful heart. He did not know exactly what the future would bring, but he knew one thing for certain: his confidence was no longer built on success alone. It was built on his ability to stand again after every fall. That day, Ethan truly understood that training your mind means preparing yourself not only for victory, but also for the moments when life tests your strength years later. When Ethan looked back at his journey, he realized that the greatest change was never in his surroundings, it was inside his own mind. The boy who once waited for the perfect moment had finally learned to create his own opportunities. He understood that life would always bring challenges, failures, and unexpected storms, but a trained mind could face them with courage and patience. Ethan continued sharing his story with others, reminding them that they did not need to change everything in one day. They only needed to make one better choice today than they made yesterday. He told people that their thoughts were the seeds of their future, and every thought they repeated became a part of their identity. The old man from the park had given him a simple lesson, but that lesson had changed his entire life. Your mind is the place where your future is created. Ethan never forgot those words. Whenever he faced a new challenge, he returned to the same belief that had started his journey. A powerful life begins with a powerful mind. So if you are waiting for the right time to change, remember Ethan's story. Do not wait until tomorrow, because tomorrow is never guaranteed. Start today. Train your mind, believe in yourself, and take the first step toward the person you want to become. Because the biggest battle you will ever win is the battle inside your own mind, and the best time to win that battle is before it's too late.